The goal of this video, that I've tried to make a billion times already, is to get the viewer to be able to watch Game of Thrones Season 1, Episode 1, and know the entire backstory of what was going on. It's because it's touched on throughout the entire series, but it's very fragmented, and it's like a puzzle. You got to put it together. But it'd be much more enjoyable, in my opinion, if you knew it. There's no spoilers here. It's only a history of the lands. So let's get right to it. The first thing about Game of Thrones that you'll notice is that, and I'm sure that you heard, is that anybody can die at any time. And that's true. You'll see that for yourself. Also, like, secondary characters become main characters, and then sometimes they drop back into nothing. You won't see a character for an entire season, maybe two. I mean, it's nuts the way that they surprise you in there. The second thing is winter. A big thing that you see all the time is winter is coming. That's because winter in this land of Game of Thrones is brutal. It can last anywhere from 1 to 100 years. Dumps about 20, 40 feet of snow on. It completely covers cities. The winds blow the snow sideways. It's horrible. So the first thing we're going to touch on are the houses of Game of Thrones. And the houses are like families, but they're called houses. Hold on here. I can't believe this. There we go. So I drew up a document or something. So the first house here is House Stark. Okay, they have their sigil. They all have sigils. Every house. These are just some of the houses. There's so many houses, but these are the most prominent ones that you'll need to know when you first start, and then you'll have to progressively learn them. Their words are "Winter is coming." It's because they're up in the north. Their sigils, the direwolf. The direwolf's on everything, on their embroideries, on their clothes, on their flags, in their cities everywhere. Their armies wear it on their shields, everything. The prominent figures of House Stark, their liege lord is Ned Stark, Eddard Stark. His wife is Catelyn Stark, used to be a Tully. They have a son, Robb Stark, a son, Jon Snow. That's Ned's bastard. Whenever a child's born out of wedlock in Game of Thrones, they get the surname of where they were born. So he was born in the north, so he's Snow. If you were born in the south, you were Sand. If you were born in the west, you're Flower. So on. They have a daughter, Sansa Stark, daughter Arya Stark, son Bran Stark, and a son Rickon Stark. And Ned has a brother named Benjen Stark, who's in the Night's Watch, and I'll get to that later. Second is House Arryn, as high as honor, of the Vale. Their House Arryn's liege lord is Jon Arryn. He's the Hand of the King when this starts. The Hand of the King is kind of the person that does all the tasks for the king, like the king's bitch, in other words. His wife is Lysa Arryn, also used to be a Tully. They have a son, Robin Arryn. The next house is House Tully of Riverrun. Family, duty, honor. And the prominent people there are the liege lord's Hoster Tully. He has a brother named Brynden. He's called the Blackfish. Then his daughter, Cat, who has the kids with Ned Stark, and Lysa, who has the son with Jon Arryn. And Hoster also has a son named Edmure. As you can see, like, these three houses here, kind of like pass children off to each other. They stay tightly knit. That's the way that they are. And you'll see there's a bunch of houses that tightly knit stay together and stuff. We'll move over here to House Greyjoy, the Kraken. We do not sow. You'll find out when you watch the series why that's their words. The Iron Islands, that's where they live. And House Greyjoy consists of Balon Greyjoy as their liege lord. Alanis Greyjoy is his wife. They have a daughter, Yara, and a son, Theon, who is currently a prisoner of House Stark. Then we go to House Lannister, the Lions. Hear me roar. They're the richest, most influential house of Game of Thrones, of the land of Westeros. That's the continent that this is all on. what they consist of. Their liege lord is Tywin Lannister, richest man in Westeros. His son, Sir Jaime the Kingslayer Lannister. Daughter Cersei Baratheon, who has a son Joffrey, daughter Myrcella, and a son Tommen. And Tywin also has a son Tyrion, the Imp Lannister. It's because he's a dwarf. They call him the Imp. House Baratheon of the Stormlands. Aerys is the Fury. The Stag is their sigil. King Robert Baratheon, because Robert Baratheon is king when you first start watching Game of Thrones. He's married to Cersei, who used to be Lannister, and there's their kids again. He has a brother named Stannis, who has a wife named Cersei, and a daughter Shireen, and Robert also has another brother named Renly. House Tyrell of Highgarden, growing strong. This is kind of like corny house, but they're the second richest in Westeros. And in House Tyrell, their liege lord is Mace Tyrell, wife is Allery, daughter Marjorie, the son is Sir Loras, the Knight of Flowers Tyrell, and the mother Olenna Tyrell. You see her. I like her. She's a good character. House Martell, unbowed, unbent, unbroken. The sun's spear is their sigil. It's a very powerful house. House Martell consists of the liege lord of Doran Martell. Wife is Mellaria of Nelvos. Tristan Martell is their son. They have a brother named Oberyn, the Red Viper Martell. His wife is Alaria Sand, who's a bastard. And then they have a bunch of daughters called the Sand Snakes. It's bastard daughters. I don't understand why they call them that yet. I'll find out soon now. I can't wait. And then we have House Targaryen, Fire and Blood. 3 dragon heads is their sigil. That all makes sense once I go into the history. And they only consist of a brother and sister, Viserys Targaryen and Daenerys Targaryen. Now, in order to start you off, we have to go to the map. Here's the map of Game of Thrones. To the west is Westeros, and to the east is Essos. Westeros has all those houses I just spoke about, and they have one king. Essos, on the other hand, has all these cities. They call them the free cities. There's not one king that rules over everything. However, they're far from free because they all have slaves. But you'll see that later. So in order to start from Game of Thrones, I have to start up at the north. This is the north. This is the Fist of the First Men. They say this is where the First Men kept their watch. Now, what were they watching? Well, from under the ice during every winter, remember that winter I told you about that was brutal and all that? Came these monsters out from under the ice, and they would kill everybody. They would come south and just ravage the land, and everything they touched, if you were dead, you became back to life again. You became a mindless zombie, and part of their army, you were all called a white. So their army kept growing and growing and growing. So after winter subsided, the First Men built this wall here, 700 feet high of ice, and they put castles there, and the group that watched it is called the Night's Watch. That's where Ned Stark's brother is, Benjen. The Night's Watch used to be a prestigious type of order, but lately it hasn't been that way because it's been thousands and thousands of years since anybody's seen a White Walker, so nobody really comes here anymore. And when you come here, you have to renounce all your titles, all your lands, and you can never marry. So not many people come here anymore, noble people, but they do now offer, it's like they offer something. They offer all your past crimes are forgiven if you come here, but you can't leave because you'll be beheaded as a deserter. So unfortunately now the wall is manned by degenerates and criminals and such. And it's become the joke of the entire land because there's still people that live up here, and they're called, the people down in the south call them wildlings, but they refer to themselves as free folk, and they keep attacking the wall because they want to get out of the winter land up here, but the Night's Watch won't let them because they fear that they're a threat to the south. So to the south, all the wall is now, and the Night's Watch is just an order of people that keep the wildlings at bay. And actually, when Game of Thrones first starts, the very first scene is 3 rangers coming through this gate right here into around White Tree here to investigate wildling activity. But let's go back a little bit further. Well, you can't go back further than that, but that's just the base story. But we're going to get into the real story now. This is Aegon the Conqueror. Aegon Conqueror started here. This is Valyria. This is where dragons were born. Now dragons became so powerful that they blew up this part of the continent and stuff. So Aegon the Conqueror wound up coming over here to Dragonstone. And he came here with his 2 sister wives. And they're called sister wives because the Targaryens wed brother and sister for years to keep the bloodlines pure. And this is House Targaryen. This is where they got their start. There were 3 of them, Aegon and his 2 sisters, and they each had a dragon that they could ride. The dragons were huge. That's why their sigil is a 3-headed dragon, because of where it started. Now, when this place first, when Aegon first got here, all these places like the North, the Vale, they all had their own armies, the Reach, and such, and their own king. So Aegon the Conqueror came here. He landed here. King's Landing wasn't here. That's what the city is now, but it wasn't here. He landed here, and he demanded everybody pay fealty to him. Now, first, a lot of especially the northern countries, didn't want that, so they tried to fight against him, but it didn't last very long because one dragon took out 10,000 men. They had no chance against the dragons. So, after this is done, they call him Aegon the Conqueror, but it's Aegon Targaryen. He lets, like, whoever was the Lord of Winterfell is the Warden of the North. Whoever's the Lord of Casterly Rock is the Warden of the West, and such like that. So, where am I at? I'm over here. I'm over in the east. I'm meant to be over here, over in the Western lands and such. So the kings kind of got to keep a title, but they didn't get to stay kings. So now we got King's Landing was made, and the throne was made and such, and Targaryen rules for 300 years. And then eventually there comes a character called Aerys Targaryen II. They refer to him as the Mad King, and they call him the Mad King because he was mad, he was insane, he heard voices and such like that, and a lot of that was due to probably the incest that occurred to where he was born. So the Mad King always thought that there was like conspiracies against him and such like that. So once down here in Storm's End, Robert Baratheon was to marry Lyanna Stark of Winterfell, and they thought that, the Mad King's voices told him that this was a conspiracy against him to attack him and stuff. So he had his son, Prince Rhaegar, who was down here in Dorne, Sunspear with the Martells, kidnap Lyanna Stark. Well, when the Lord of Winterfell at the time, Brandon Stark, protested, he was summoned to King's Landing to answer for his, for his protest. So he took his son Rickard, and they went south. And when they got here, they were killed in the throne room, very horrifically. You'll hear it referred to. The father, Brandon, was burned, and the son was strapped to something where every time he moved closer to try to save his father, the sword went deeper into his throat. It was really bad the way he was killed. Well, after he was killed, this sparked a lot of anger. So House Baratheon of the Stormlands, the River Lords, Tullys and such, the Freys of the Twins, Aaron, the House Aaron of the Vale, all the houses of the North, like Winterfell, the Dreadfort, Last Hearth, all that, they all go to war with King's Landing. Places like Highgarden and Sunspear, they Dorne and the Reach and such, they stayed loyal to King's Landing. So it's called Robert's Rebellion because Robert Baratheon led it because of his rage, because he wanted Lyanna back. Now, through it all, there was a long war, but to make a long story short, here at the Trident, you'll hear the Battle of the Trident, is where Robert Baratheon finally met Prince Rhaegar. and he kills Prince Rhaegar. But at the same time, they find out that Lyanna was killed too. So it was all in vain, but Robert's very pissed off about that now. His wife, bride to be, is dead. But Robert suffered a lot of injuries when he fought Prince Rhaegar. And down here, where Robert used to live, in Storm's End, his brother Stannis Baratheon was under siege for like a year from House Tyrell and House Martell. But he held it down the entire time and never gave up. So, at the time in King's Landing, at this time, is the hand of the king is Tywin Lannister. And he, notices things are going sour. He's like, I'm going to go get my army to help. I'll be back. And he goes to Casterly Rock. Meanwhile, Ned Stark marches south with his, army to take King's Landing. Tywin comes back with his army and knocks on the door. Well, he was the hand of the king, so of course the king trusts him. Tywin Lannister comes in with the entire Lannister army at his back and sacks the city. They start killing every Targaryen alive. During the siege, Tywin's oldest son, Sir Jaime Lannister, was on the King's Guard. The King's Guard is 7 elite knights that constantly guard the king. He wound up killing the Mad King, and he would be dubbed the Kingslayer from that point. And then when Ned Stark came down with his army, everything was in ruin and burned, and all the Targaryens were dead, and the Lannisters just sacked the city, and Jaime Lannister, the Kingslayer now, is sitting on the throne. And there's a big discussion about that, but you'll learn about that kind of stuff later. You don't need to know about that. So, over here in Dragonstone still was Aerys Targaryen's, the Mad King's wife, who had a son named Viserys, and she was pregnant with a daughter named Daenerys. She eventually gives birth and sends Viserys and Daenerys over here to Pentos. She dies and sends them to Pentos so they're safe. And the last 2 Targaryens, Viserys and Daenerys Targaryen, over here in Pentos. So Robert Baratheon is declared king in King's Landing. Jon Arryn is the hand of the king, and everybody else goes home. And it's quiet for a little bit until, out of nowhere, the Greyjoys, this is called the Greyjoy Rebellion. Remember I told you about that we do not sow. This guy, Lord Balon Greyjoy, just announces himself king. And he comes down here, and the first thing he does is he goes after the navy in Lannisport. That's the Lannisters' navy in Lannisport. Dragonstone was given to Stannis Baratheon, who is Robert's middle brother, so the one right under him. Renly was given Storm's End, but that's not important right now. But Dragonstone, so Stannis brings his navy around south, around here, and meets the Greyjoys, because after they destroyed the Lannister fleet, and he destroys the entire Greyjoy fleet. Now after that, every single house in Westeros attacks the Iron Islands. And it's a very short rebellion. They call it a fool's rebellion because they had no chance, but that's just the way the Ironborn are. Balon Greyjoy had 3 sons. 2 are killed during this battle. The youngest, Theon, is taken up to Winterfell and held hostage, sort of, to remind him never to step out of line again. So his last son is up in Theon is up in Winterfell. That's basically it. You'll see. It's easy to know now what's going on, because before every episode of Game of Thrones, you'll see a map. They come down, they show a map, and they show what cities and what areas will be significant for that episode. Episode 1, they're only going to show you King's Landing, Winterfell, the Wall, and Pentos. So, King's Landing, Winterfell, there's the Wall, and Pentos. That's it. That's all they're going to show you. Now, more get added. Like, if you were going to turn it on just in the middle of nowhere, Season 3, Episode 8, you'd see all these cities that would be bouncing around everywhere. Like, oh my God, where are all these? How am I supposed to keep track? And another good thing is that mostly everyone in Episode 1 is in Winterfell. And like I said, it starts right here. As soon as you turn it on, it's 3 Rangers going through the gates up in here to investigate wildling activity. So you got the Targaryens over here, which is a different land. The Essos, it's called Essos, and like they have like different cities like Myr, for instance. If your name was Tom, you'd be Tom from Myr. You'd be Frank from Pentos. That's the way it is. They don't have surnames there. It's different. It's a different type of land. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this was informative for you. Let me know if it wasn't. I tried to make it as fast as possible and as accurate as possible. Thank you very much for watching.